Hello, and welcome to Milestone 3 of the DataForge application that I'm writing for Full Sail University's Advanced Software Engineering graduate class. The main goal of today's milestone is that we are now able to generate code from the command line. This was done and added to the application through an addition of the ability to take in command line arguments at runtime. We're still able to run the main UI application, but the goal of the command line utility is to be able to allow the code generation to happen via scripts or other things running in a larger application. For this particular utility, we're looking for 3 command line arguments. These are shown to the user via a message box that pops up that displays the usage. These 3 parameters are needed in order to run the application as a command line utility. It is the desired output language, which in this case we support C++, C#, and Visual Basic, and then a workspace file that has been previously created using the UI interface, and then a destination file for the output of this code generation. If all 3 of these exist, then we begin to parse the inputs. We first look at the language and assign the selected language based on the input for the user. If this is not a correct input, then we restart by having the error printed out and provided to the user. Then we try to load the workspace. If that succeeds, in the case that the workspace is not null, then we'll continue on with code generation. Otherwise, we will again notify the user and exit the application. Once we have created a workspace, we then set up the code generation manager and then parse the destination file. And as long as they did not give us an empty string, we assume that it's a valid file. Then we try to generate code to the file, call the generate code to file function based on the loaded message list and the language. Then, if it successfully writes the code, then we will show a message prompt. Otherwise, if it fails, we will also show a failed prompt. And that's the entire application and what this milestone needs. So we'll go ahead and show you this running by cleaning the entire program first, then building the application. And then we will take a look real quick at the debugging properties that were added to the workspace. We added the command line arguments that we want to output to C++, use a previously created workspace1.dfg file, and then output to workspace1_out.c++. We will show you that output workspace file real quick by closing the properties, then opening the folder in File Explorer, going to the runtime location, and this is the compiled folder that we'll be working in. We can go ahead and delete the previous generation of the dfg out, or the workspace out C++, and then we can open this file with a notepad editor. You can see that there is some content in here. The workspace is in JSON format, and it doesn't have any new lines, so it's a little hard to read, but we will go ahead and generate this code using the command line utility. So we can both run the command line utility through a command prompt, or we can run it directly from the Visual Studio interface. We can click the drop down and select the debug properties and show what command line arguments we want to put in. For example, we're going to ask to generate in C++ using workspace1.dfg again, and workspace1._out.c++. If we click run on this application, with those arguments, it will then show that it was successfully writing a workspace1_out.c++ file. Then if we go to the same folder where that output was, refresh real quick, and we'll see that there is workspace1_out.c++, which we can then look at. We'll see that it generated a C++ style definition for each of our messages that are in that class. If we go back and choose to instead generate it as a C# file, we can choose C# and go ahead and change the output type to C#. Close the properties, run it again. We'll see that the code was successfully written to workspace1_out.c#. If we look at that file, we can see that it is C++ styled in the same definitions of each variable and their types. If we desired to go ahead and run this directly from a PowerShell, we can link here and use a similar command to that was used in the past. In this case, it's the same structure, but you first provide the executable that you wish to use, and then you define the output language, the input file, and the output file. And we'll create a dfg_out this time. We'll see that it successfully wrote a Visual Basic file, which we can see showed up here. Then we can go ahead and edit. You look here and we can verify that it is in fact a Visual Basic styled definition for each of the messages that are in the workspace. This was a relatively quick and easy milestone, and I hope you enjoyed seeing it working, and I would look forward to any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.